Cool.
All right, well, welcome everybody. Let me go through and kind of just explain what we're doing, and just kind of go from there. So we are going to be lag testing a couple of devices, but I first want to make sure that everybody knows that our baseline testing is solid. Anybody who's sat through all my long, boring videos already knows it, but that's kind of, it's always good to double check. With hardware like this, you don't need to check every time. However, if it were something like MD4A audio testing or anything software related, you would want to check every time. But as you can see, well, let me zoom in a little bit to see if I can get this for you here. Well, I'm looking at the wrong window again. Darn it, I can't look in the YouTube window for that. So let me get this in focus. So that is showing, if I could line the sensor up correctly, 0 milliseconds of latency on this monitor. So we know that this entire setup, we know that this HDMI to component video converter is 0 latency. We know that the monitor is 0 latency. And also, since both of these are outputting 720, then that 720p image that we're taking from the time sleuth is also 0. And just for anybody curious, as is 480p if we switch over to that at some point. The numbers after the dot are microseconds, and the only reason you're even seeing those is because of overscan, because the bezel covers the top left. So if anybody has any questions on that, fire away, and I will plug in the first test to kind of check it out and see where we're at. Adelator.pvm is 4x3 with 16x9 bezels. That model, the D9H, didn't really have many 4x3 bezels made, so this one was all beat up and smashed. So I just cut out a 16x9 to make it 4x3. But those are rare and really hard to find.
Hey, Bob, so, did the screen gray out on you again?
It did.
It did. Okay.
Hey, RWL.
Oh, okay, there it goes. Yeah, so I really
Adelator. Tube is 4x3, but what you're talking about is separate from the tube. So you're not wrong, but what you're talking about is image processing on HD CRTs, and not all process the image with latency, but you're right. I mean, you need to do, like we just showed, you need to do, you meaning like we need to do some kind of baseline testing to determine that, but that's what we just did, so good call.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm actually glad you're going through this, because lag is something I don't really talk about too much on the channel, and I know for a lot of folks it's really important, and honestly, I mean, rightfully so, because it can really affect gameplay, and so Bob, I'm glad you're kind of going through this, because I know you talk about it a lot, and I kind of want to hopefully understand it a little bit more. So thank you.
Well, glad you said that, because one of the reasons why I'm doing this today is because we're teaching Tito how to lag test.
That's right.
That you can be the next person to perfect this for your videos.
Sweet, absolutely.
What we have here is lower the ISO so you can see it a little bit better. Probably have to raise the f-stop a little as well. There we go. So we are now using the 240p test suite, or in this case, the 160p test suite. And we are going to go in to the stopwatch. And I don't know if you can see this on, you can't really see it on stream, but this BVM has a weird focus issue where it keeps going out of focus and snapping back. Steve from RetroTech will be fixing this for me at some point. But, so here's how we're going to do this. We have the 240p test suite stopwatch, which we could start running here. When I press this button on the controller, the LED lights up. So then we can see how many frames pass on this counter from the time that the LED lights until the time that it shuts off. Now, you can use a cell phone for this, but the rolling shutter might affect the outcome. You could try to use any other kind of camera with a slow motion mode, but what we have here is a Sony camera that can run at 1,000 frames per second at a
Oh, wow.
resolution of like 1920 by 200 or something. So you'll see how terrible this is. I'll see if I can see if I can get that into view for you. If I can stop hitting my camera. And so let me get this in focus. Actually, I know this is rude, but I have to kind of stand in front of this real quick just to make sure it actually works. Here we go, getting there.
Now, Bob, where does one get a camera like that? Is that like a specialized camera for doing slow motion, or is that just kind of like a feature of a normal consumer type camera?
Nope, that's the best part about this. This is a Sony RX10 II, which is not a cheap camera. It's actually not a very good camera, except for this feature. But there's also a point-and-shoot version of this that you can get used for a couple $100 that has the same feature. I think the point-and-shoot would probably be just as good as this one, because this one's pretty disappointing. And then some of their Pro Series cameras has the feature, but now we're talking thousands of dollars. So, so I'm going to start this out. And then when I press this button, I'm going to have a pretty limited time. So I only got one in on this time, and then it takes a while for all those frames to buffer to the card. So you can kind of sort of see it playing in slow motion there, but I will be showing that in a second anyway on camera.
Oh, interesting. So does it only take 1 second of... Like how long is that film duration? Is that you can't set that to, I guess, infinite?
3 seconds, I think, is
3
the
seconds.
max.
Oh, interesting.
If you're quick, like if you were over here standing next to me, what I would have you do is hit the button. As soon as I heard the noise, I would hit my button, and then you'd hit that immediately after. So just to save the amount of time it took to save it.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to do this again. I like to do 3 tests. I think that's a good baseline. In a perfect world, you would do, I don't know, 100, but that's just not realistic. So
Right. So is it Are
there any schematics for how I build the LED SNES controller? Yeah, you know what? Let me show you these now. Since actually, let me take one more, and then as we're waiting, I'll show you that. I'll try to be as respectful of everybody's time as possible here. And okay. What did I do with it? They were just right here.
And so Philippe, just to answer your question, yes, we are not LAD testing, but we are lag testing. That was my mistake. I did a typo. So I will be fixing that as soon as we're done here.
So as let me pull these out. Here's what I will be sending to Tito. I showed this, shameless plug, I showed this on my weekly podcast as part of how to use JLC PCB to make your own orders. And what this ends up being is a panel of LED boards that have just 3 connections on them: power, ground, and signal. So you open up your controller, any controller that works in a single momentary push button on-off, which is almost every one ever made. But you would just open up your controller. I used crappy third-party controllers for this. Then you would measure where power and ground are, usually off the main wire. And then the center pin, you would just solder to whatever pad is broken out for the controller. Now, sometimes you actually have to use like a felt pen and scrape off solder mask. Sometimes you have to drill a hole through to do pad hacking to go through the other side, which is all not going to ruin your controller, but I like to use the junkiest ones possible, just so I don't feel bad about that. So I will be sending Tito a row of these to install in whatever controllers he would like.
Sounds good.
I might even be able to get him a camera if my buddy still has an extra one. So, and that is exactly how you would end up doing the test if you wanted to test game or any kind of handheld screen latency. You would basically just, on the inside of the handheld, solder power and ground, and then signal. And then that's kind of it. Now, this one, we spec'd out the wrong LED. So what you're going to see here in this video is a very, very, very bright LED. And these end up working the opposite. These are always on, not very bright, and when you press the button, the light goes off. Makes zero difference in these testing. And to be honest, I think I've seen spots multiple times when I accidentally looked at this one directly, because this sucker is bright. So it's not really a bad thing. When that's done, I'm going to power this off, take out the SD card, and Tito, do you see if you could switch to my screen share view? If it screws everything up, or if it, I hope it doesn't.
Let's see here. I think... Does that do it? I think that did it.
Yes. Okay, beautiful.
Hopefully people can see that.
It's going to take me a minute to copy the files over here. I did this entire process live on my channel yesterday, and oh boy, it took a long time. I think, I was trying to save everybody time here, but stuff like this, just copying files, renaming files, all that stuff, that takes a lot longer than one would imagine. But now we're dumping these in. We're going to start with the first file, and you can probably see how grainy this looks, but it does work. So what you see here, that beam of light that you see me in slow motion, and that beam of light is the light that the CRT uses to draw the image. Now, this is not fast enough to see it draw it from left to right one at a time. However, you can at least see the frame being drawn. So this will correspond with the numbers on screen as kind of like a backup to show exactly what's going on. Now, there are more specific methods that could be used to get it really tight down to the millisecond. When you're doing stuff like this, down to the frame is really what matters. Because if something has less than a frame of latency, there's almost nobody is going to notice that, unless it's variable, which we'll check. So I'm just going to advance one frame at a time. Oop. The other thing that you have to note, so I'm about to press this button as the CRT is drawing half of its frame, which means it might not pull the controller again until that beam of light hits the bottom and then goes back up to the top. So all of these tests using an LED light could potentially be off by one frame. That's why you do multiple, because if you see, like in the stream yesterday, all of this stuff, almost all of the hits that we got, the beam of light was right about halfway through, so it technically was one game or one frame over. Whereas, if it just so happened that the beam was on the top, it might not. So let's keep that in mind. But we're at 35 here. 36, so that's one frame. 37, that's two.
And Bob, what are we looking for right now? We're looking for, I guess, your input to register?
On the fifth frame, it changed from that countdown screen to the menu. Now, that does not mean that the GBI consolizer has 5 frames of lag. That means that the 240p test suite, the stopwatch, takes 5 frames, probably 4 actually, to process that signal input until the screen changes. So I could do it again by, let me do it this way so you could kind of see it a little bit slower motion here. So let me go back. So from the time this goes on, 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the 5th one it changes. So that number doesn't matter. How we test and how we determine that number is all that matters. So if you disagreed with me and you said, no, Bob, that beam of light's halfway through, that frame doesn't count, we'll just call this 4. Or you could say, no, the 5th frame is when the picture changed. We got to call that. But it doesn't matter as long as you test the exact same way every time.
Got it. So I guess we would try to, like, what would be like the control that would show? Is there anything that would?
This is the control.
Okay.
This is the Game Boy Advance consolizer designed by Woozle. This is designed in a way that not only is it supposed to be 0 latency, it might actually be faster than an original Game Boy Advance because of the screen latency inherent to that and the crystal oscillator. So Oh, we're getting a little bit, a little bit too nerdy here. All I can say is that I think almost everybody in the community, if not everybody, would agree this is a very good baseline. So we can cut this down again. Let's. All right, so this is going to be interesting too because now the light's starting to come on with it halfway, so that's the same. So it's basically should be 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the 5th one it draws the other one. So we have 5 again, and we're going to look at the 3rd, and if the 3rd is confirmed, that's our baseline. Now, when you're doing these tests, if you ever get a completely wild reading that doesn't make any sense, note it, but basically just delete it and start over. Sometimes things hiccup, just like with all computers, but for the most part, this should be pretty straightforward. Let me go back here. Oh.
So, and I think you mentioned this earlier. So essentially every time you run a latency test, like let's say every time I want to do a consolizer or some new consolizer, I would compare it to say Woozle's kit, but I would have to run that control over again. Like I can't just save this video and use it later.
I would just out of my inherent distrust for everything technical.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yep.
This should be a baseline. And what I was explaining before, luckily I now have a visual example for, so I don't have to just talk you all to death. You see how the beam of light is up top?
Yep.
Let's just kind of go through. So, back this up. The light lights up right as this beam of light is about to draw the frame. So this could be right about when it pulls the controller. Because it's early like this could be 4 frames. So, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Wow.
So maybe you could actually say that because the beam of light was up, that's still 5. 1, 2, yeah. So passing the beam of light over the numbers 5 times, 5 times all 3 tests has been consistent. So that means that our baseline reading of 5 is 0. So anything over 5 is how much lag the next thing that we're testing would add to that. If you wouldn't mind switching back to the camera view, I will jump back into that as well. Okay.
There we go.
So, it's going to be the same controller. There should almost never be an issue with controllers and in having that skew the results. But in this case, we're using the exact same controller, so it's definitely not going to be an issue. Actually, I shouldn't say that. If you were to ever use like a wireless controller versus wired, yes, you're going to get very different results. But so now we have the GBA HD.
All right.
You did the video on this a couple months ago, right, Tito?
Yes, that's right. Yep.
And generally, you had positive things to say about it. I remember it being a pretty good review, and it looked like a cool product.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, for the most part, it was fantastic. I think the only issue that I had was it's not fully compatible with every single capture card or HDMI device. But I think I had a similar issue with the Game Boy Color and their DMG kit. It worked on my TV though. I couldn't get it to work on my capture card, and I know that's kind of like a known issue. There are a few capture cards that work with it, but overall, if you're just going to use it on the TV, I was very pleased with it. And I think Woozle's kit, I think I had the same problem as well. I couldn't. I don't want to quote myself on that, but I believe I also didn't have a capture card that could get that footage. So. And I think
well, I'm just repeating the exact same test on this now for anybody wondering. GBA HD Advance, thank you.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, add a later. The CRTs and cameras are like oil and water. It is horrible trying to do all this stuff well. And that's actually one of the main reasons why that getting started video I've been talking about for the past 3 years hasn't happened. Because in order to really understand why anybody would ever care about a CRT, you would have to get good shots, which I can't get. The moire pattern, all this stuff is just brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I always have trouble with. Whenever I try to record the CRT, yeah, the moire, and I just can't get it right. And then the refresh, they aren't synced, so you get the lines, and I haven't quite figured that out yet. But, yeah. Yeah, and sorry for, yeah, I'm trying to pay attention to Bob, so I haven't been looking at chat. Let's see here. So Dubison Hauer is saying that maybe, I just have like cheap Amazon HDMI cables, so maybe getting better ones might improve compatibility. I haven't tried that, so yeah, maybe just I have really crappy HDMI
unlikely
cables.
Unless you're going in higher resolutions. If it works in 720p and 480p, it's possible, but it's not as likely.
Okay, yeah. Oh, and he says, yeah, his mage will...
I don't know what anybody's drinking this evening, but for me, it's good old Smittix, one of my favorites.
Nice. Yeah, no, I have a just a sparkling water. Yeah, nothing fancy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know I've said this a million times, but like, I drink water all day long, so at the end of the night, I have to have a drink. But alcohol doesn't have any factor in that whatsoever. It just can't be water. Even a flavored 0-calorie fizzy water, that totally counts as a drink to me, as long as it's just not the same glass of empty water that I've been drinking all day long. So sometimes it's beer, sometimes it's like I had my nieces over the other day, so I got juice boxes, and obviously they didn't finish all of them. So like my nightly drink a couple nights this week has been a 20-calorie little kid's juice box.
Nice.
And it's wonderful. Yeah. It's just as long as it's not water.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like during the day, I probably drink about like 2 or 3 of these, and yeah, by the end of the day, I'm like, I'm all watered out. Some sparkling water or something with flavor, just to keep you sane.
Would you mind swapping back over to the capture view, please?
Yes.
Gear Belmont, hello. So, since I've already explained this, I'm basically going to just skip to the test here.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you're showing me this, because for some reason in my head I thought it was a lot more complex than this, but this is actually a pretty simple...
Skim through yesterday's stream and you'll see exactly how complex it can be.
Oh, man. All right, I'll definitely have to watch that. Yeah, probably all the setup is probably quite a bit more complex. But actually executing the test doesn't look too bad.
That was 9.
Oh, wow.
So let's go back over this again.
Yeah.
So we have the beam of light is about halfway through the screen. So this lines up with most of the tests that we just did.
Mm-hmm.
And let's count how many times that beam of light passes over that frame number in the upper right-hand corner, the one that's now at 26. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And on the 9th frame, we get back to that. So that means it's about 4 frames of latency with this over woozles. So let's continue to test them, and of course, the next numbers are always so important. If it's consistent latency, that's actually probably more of a good thing than anything else. It's only when the latency is all over the place, like the original Genesis Mini, where we have issues. So we're seeing again. I was going the wrong direction.
Yeah, I was like, is it going backwards? Yeah, there we go.
All right, so about the same thing, about the center of the screen, so let's count again. Oh, no, I forgot to slow it down. Sorry. This is 1,000 frames per second running at 20% speed is what I'm doing. Now, the speed indicator will not affect the results. I am sure that's obvious to say, but the only time it would affect the results is there were a few times where I counted milliseconds, because every frame on a 1,000 frame per second recording is about a millisecond, give or take. I've done that before, and obviously slowing it down and speeding up adds frames, but when we're just watching the electron beam pass over the light, that's another reason why I like this test. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. The number matches up in the right-hand corner. That's a fun coincidence. Oh, okay, so that was 6. Let's count this again to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So on the 7th frame, it changed, which means it's 2 frames of latency.
And
let's try the
last one was 8. Is that what it was?
9.
Oh, it was 9 on the last one. Okay.
9, but
9?
The number 9 isn't what we actually counting. We're counting the difference between 5 and 9. So 4 and now 2.
4 and 2.
Dubes wants to know if you could do this lag testing on a monitor. Absolutely. And in fact, depending on what you're doing, you could do this on a flat panel that is consistent low latency. So I have a couple of panels that are like 2 milliseconds of lag. You could absolutely do this. You would not get the electron beam, and then you would have to manually count milliseconds. So, like,
okay.
9 times 16 is 144, so I would have had to click this button 144 times to get that reading, to get an exact millisecond, which is another reason why I like doing it on the CRT. So, could just be laziness. Graphics gear, I will give that a shot after this if we have time, if Tito would like. I would certainly try that. I would love to have Extrems here to tell me what I'm doing wrong. Sorry, Extrems. I think you're awesome, but I gotta tease you. Okay, so 3rd test, and we're obviously gonna have to do a bunch more, because whenever you have multiple tests that have different readings, the beam of light is right up at the top, so this could be 1 lower, but let's count for just like we did every other time. We count how many times the beam passes over the numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 again. So 9, 7, 9. So let's take some more readings. That's not enough. If we have multiple readings like that, how do we know if it's 9 or 7? You could 100% say that that's also true on Woozles. The reason I'm not taking 10 readings of that is because I've done this so many times on this. So if you wouldn't mind switching back over.
Yep.
You've got exactly what you need. You have RX 100. I have an RX 10, so yours is probably better. But you could absolutely do that. And resolution 1136 by 384. Yep, totally. Do you know, is that the point and shoot version, or is that the like this style version of it? Do you know?
Point and shoot. Okay.
Yeah, that's the one I'm trying to get over to you, Tito. I had somebody that had one, and then they kind of ghosted me. I think they were busy with life things. So let me actually put this back and focus on the monitor. You all know what the camera looks like, where I could switch back to this slightly cooler monitor view. Hey, Ryan, how's it going, man? I believe there's a lot more of the Sonys that can do it. but it's really hard. A lot of the ones that can definitely do it, I've physically held the cameras before, on their website does not list it as a feature. So it's kind of hard to figure out which is which.
Yeah, it is
There's
kind of
one pro version of it that looks so awesome that I wanted so badly, but there's no confirmation that every model has them. Because some people, like I messaged a bunch of eBay sellers and asked, I was like, I'm so sorry to bug you, can you look for this feature? And half of them were like, I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing even remotely listed like that here. And the others were like, yeah, it's here, but it came with a paid firmware update or something. So who knows if that was accurate or not. But they seemed nice. They were nice enough to do the test for me, so I can't imagine they were lying. I'm going to do a couple more just so we could make sure. A 5 to 700 on eBay, dudes is saying. So, yeah, unfortunately, then they're not cheap. And I don't know about you, Dubes. I'm certainly not talking shit about your camera. I'm just saying this one that I have, the RX10 not a great camera. The lens is just, it's noisy even at the lowest f-stop in a white box, which I think it's one of those things where, you know, no two pieces of glass are the same. I imagine if you bought 10 of these, you get 10 slightly different results. But still, it's a lot of money for something that a lot of people were paying. You know, you can get a used GH5 for that price. So,
is the lens fixed to the camera, or is it like interchangeable?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think, I think the graininess that you see in these captures is always going to be like that at this resolution. But potentially, if you got one with a better lens, like the prime lens that I'm using here, you could get a lot more light in just by not having that essentially crappy kit lens built in.
Yeah, I imagine you're probably cranking the ISO because at that frame rate, you're not letting a lot of light in. And that's probably also maybe contributing to the graininess a little bit. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, funny enough, when you start, or this camera has a whole bunch of different settings for that, where you could have priority be f-stop, you could have priority be focus, and it never makes a difference in the slow motion mode. So I think it really is just a bad lens.
Got it.
As this one's done, we'll switch back over, and we should have enough tests now to really get a sense of it.
Cool, cool. There we go. All right.
And of course, anybody has any questions, fire away. I'll do my best to keep up with the chat.
Yeah, sorry, I'm doing pretty bad at keeping up with chat. Sorry about that. I'm trying to pay attention to Bob so I don't have to bug him later when I try to do this. All right.
You got 5 more results, so this should be more than enough to try to get a good baseline. And if it's all over the place, then that's the real results then. At least we know we're trying our best.
Mm-hmm.
Dumping these 5 in.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know why. I mean, I think the SNES is like a pretty good, you know, universally accepted controller for being good. I think a lot of people like the form factor. It's got all the right buttons on it for these types of consolizers. At least that's what I think.
When Woozle did his, it was he was deciding between a bunch of different ones, and I basically just verbally abused him till he used the SNES one, because my whole reason for that is the button layout is very reminiscent to all of the Nintendo handhelds, and it has every feature that you would need from any Nintendo handheld. You know, I could be wrong about that. People seem to like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it works pretty well. There was a kit, and it actually might have been the GameBox system kit that. Oh yeah, Wii. You can use a Wii controller, one of those, or even those classic mini console controllers. I could be wrong with that, but I see GameBox is saying that the Wii Classic also works on their kits. All right.
If that was 8, so let me go back and double check that one.
Yeah, I missed it.
Oh, the light turns on when it's at the very bottom of the screen, so that makes sense. Because so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So yeah,
8.
that makes sense. 7-1. The 7 is the anomaly here, and that's the one that I don't understand why it was like that. But we'll keep going.
And another question. So when you do the button press, sometimes it takes 2 frames for the LED to like fully illuminate. I'm guessing as soon as you start to see it illuminate is when you start, right?
100%, yes.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool.
It's also the reason why I really didn't care that the light on the ones that I'm sending you that I installed in fact a controller that we're going to be seeing here shortly if I could have all the stuff to do it. But that's why I didn't really care that it was backwards, because it doesn't really matter on off. All that matters is when you see change.
Got it.
And light is obviously fast enough to deal with this. So
in the ones you're sending over, is as soon as it starts dimming is kind of when I would start the count.
they seem faster, so you'll know right away. Premiere wasn't here. Let me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. Interesting. Okay, that's another one that the.
That was 7.
That was 7. That was another 7. So here's between 7 and 9 frames, meaning that means it's 2 to 4 frames variable. I'll keep going with this, but
and so variable
greatest.
is
it's not bad.
And the issue, what's the issue with variability? I guess that inconsistency, I guess, is probably you'd rather it be consistent than inconsistent.
Yeah, let's say you're a pro player, and that's actually why I had Beast over when I did the review of the MVSX, the emulation console. Let's say you get a pro player that is used to pro setups at whatever the 0 latency is. They could normally adapt if it's a couple of frames, and then their brain just really compensates for it. But if you can't compensate for something that's always changing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Another 8.
8.
And just to be clear again, I'm very sorry to repeat myself, but if anybody is joining, this is not 8 frames of lag. We're talking how many frames until it changes on screen, and we're doing the math of versus the control test. So I want to keep saying that, as annoying as it might be to people that have been here since the beginning. I don't want to have people think that this consolizer has 8 frames of lag or something. It definitely does not.
Oh, so Mike Walker is asking a question. He says, do you think when you press the button while the scan line is drawing makes a difference? Also, travel time of the button from finger movement to closing the circuit. Well, definitely the finger movement shouldn't, because a press is a press when it's registered. But I think you answered that question already with earlier. So if you just came in, I think the reason, if it's like halfway through, like a lot of our samples were halfway through, but you would just count that.
Actually, this is the perfect example right here. So do you see how the beam of light is at the very top of the screen? This might affect when the button press is read by the controller polling of the console, of all consoles. So because it's right up top versus in the middle, it actually is probably drawn enough to not count. So yes, I did kind of go into a lot of detail about that before, Mike. However, you're 100% right about the travel time of the button, which is why I install the LED, because when I used to use the slow motion camera with my fat thumb, I would always have that same question, like, how the hell do I know when the button starts to depress versus when it actually is triggering? So excellent question. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. That's pretty good. I mean, so the highest is 9, and we've got 2 of those, and we got a couple of 7s. So I think I'll do this last one because I already took the measurement, but I think we're pretty much confirmed here.
Mm-hmm.
One in. Sorry, Mike. I know not everybody can join a live stream on time. I just it's always that fun balance between like making sure everybody's got the info they know without boring everybody to death by just saying the same story over and over again, like you've run into me at a bar. Okay, so last one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Interesting.
Oh wow. Wait, so that one, that's our lowest one so far.
Yeah. Well, you know, do you count this passing over when the light goes on? This is all. This is where it comes down to, or this is where you could have such a variable in this. Now, even with all of this stuff compensated, we got solid 5s on woozles, whereas this one is 6 to 9. But I don't think I want to say this is 6, both because the beam of light is right there, but also because I don't think it would be fair to say that it has 1 to 4 frames, because that variability, that's a lot. I think this is a 7, both to measure or to match our previous tests, but also because I think it's a more fair thing. So 2 to 4 frames of latency is what we have determined. It does seem to vary. So I think that's where we should call it with this one. I think that's fair.
Okay.
I don't think we should say this varies by 3 frames, because that was really down to the test method.
Cool.
Gamebox, you know, that's the unfortunate reality of doing these things, right? You could have had 0 frames of lag, but when it hits the reviewers, if that's what it is, that's what we get. So crap. But so I have a little bit more time, not too much. Anybody want to see me try this with the GameCube?
Yeah. I mean, I have time. So.
All right. It's going to be the same exact test. I just need a moment to grab all that stuff. In fact, I keep meaning to do a GameCube live stream to test out the Pico boot, which obviously I learned about from Tito's video. But I keep pushing that back. I think I'm going to end up doing that next Friday. And then I have an extra GameCube that I'll probably be selling for that one too.
Sweet.
Does anybody know, I know I've asked this before, but does anybody know of some kind of auction selling thing that you could do on a live stream? So it doesn't matter if you're on one of those other platforms. It doesn't matter if you're on YouTube or Twitch. You just load up a plugin and you could do it that way, or does that not exist? Because I looked and it did not seem to exist.
What about, I know you used the Whatnot, but I guess that's not what you're describing.
No, that wasn't a good experience at all. I walked with they took me for at least a couple $100.
Really? Oh my god.
Yeah, I was disappointed.
Oh wow. Oh dang. That's not good.
There's a whole story about that, but
Okay.
I'll be doing an interview with a friend of mine who has a lot more in-depth knowledge about what went on, and their story is a little bit. I guess it'll show you a little bit better what's going on over there.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I had no idea.
So, yeah, I'm sorry to drag you into that one too, Tito. When I first started that, it seemed like a great idea.
Right.
My bad.
No, that's okay. The I mean, hopefully, because you had sold a couple things for me, and I hope you got your money for that. If not, please.
No. Yeah, that was totally fine. That
okay,
was
okay.
That stream worked out well.
Okay.
It's also the other thing too, right? Where whenever you go up against, I mean, they had $160 million investment this year. So when you go up against somebody with that much of an investment, right, you got to be careful what you say, because it's they have the resources to make me look like a total ass.
Right.
So.
Gotcha.
For anybody in chat, which version Game Boy interface should I use? Because I don't even want to bother checking out the original. I know it's terrible. Actually, would you mind setting back up to the other view, please, Tito?
Yep, gotcha.
And we'll see what we got here. I gotta find my Carby. Oh, it's in here. Here it is. I used to have the other colored one, the clear one, so I was looking for that. I forgot that I have the black case now.
Is that from Insurrection?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Alright. So, internal test for GameBox systems says 2 to 4 frames of lag internal. That's exactly what we just got, right?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, yeah.
I read that wrong, GameBox? I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep up with the chat, but I'm also running around.
Let's see.
So obviously the GameCube is going to be, we'll do 480p for this one. And I showed before when I did the time sleuth test that this monitor is also 0 latency in that mode. And as you can see, this is one now. The light turns off. I'm not sure if I'm in camera view.
Oh, sorry. Let me see here. There we go. Sorry about that.
Oh, good. What was the GBA HD Advance? 720p. Oh, that light, a lot dimmer, but it will work. Have Game Boy interface.
Oh, hey, Raw Talent. Yep. No problem, dude. No problem.
I think I pressed the wrong thing. Let me reboot. The HF version. That's what I would use as well. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. Guess my clock battery died in this. I should probably switch that during the stream too. I'm still using an action replay, so you can see.
Hey, Adelator.
I think I'll call it at this one.
Yeah.
I also don't think I have any more here. Right, GBI HF. Video buffering. So here's where single or double, triple. Let's go to single buffered. Video format, NTSC, video mode. Let's do 480p because we're just already in that mode. Sorry. Remember I said use crappy controllers for this? Well, there you go. Worst D-pad I've ever used. 30p 60. We're sampling no. Color space. It's not going to matter for this test. Polling rate. Ooh. Let's turn it up to the highest, I guess. Anybody have a suggestion on the polling rate?
Polling rate. I'm not even sure what that is.
Fast the controller is pulled, I believe.
Oh, huh. I mean, I guess we would probably want it to be as fast as possible, right?
Yeah, we'll try
maybe.
it both ways, I guess, if we get
Okay.
weird results.
Hmm.
Gamma, contrast, volume, sound. Okay. Start, load doll.
I wonder why would that even be an option? Is there like some sort of gameplay advantage to having it slower versus faster?
True advantage, or the true answer to that is because Extrems is a freaking madman that throws everything that you can find into this. I love it. Absolutely love it. So we have to do this one slightly different. It should be the same parameters, but the button that I have hooked up to the LED only stops the stopwatch, which is fine. We just have to now then just count that instead. And we'll figure what that is. Also, I think because the LED is dimmer, I should be turning the lights off. So, spooky stream time. How long did it take you to shoot that Halloween episode?
So, the first part of the intro, I mean, every episode probably takes me about 30 hours, I would say, throughout the whole entire week. But usually when I do like a special intro like that, just like an extra few hours I'll dedicate to the intro. But the second half of the intro I actually reused from the last 2 years, because I did that intro a while ago. But that first section, that one was new, and it probably took me like an afternoon to film that. Not including like conceptualizing it and figuring out what I want to film. But yeah.
That came out absolutely awesome. It looked like a lot of work.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. But yeah, no, I have a lot of fun, kind of messing around with the video, and for me, that's the fun part, is actually like the filming, the editing. I mean, doing the mod is fun too, but I enjoy the filming process a lot. Yeah.
Out of curiosity, I'll do the second test with the light on, but that's why you can kind of see why I definitely appreciate the dimmer light. Because in a pitch black room, if I had looked down at that LED, forget it. That would, I'd be seeing spots right now. So because I didn't leave the screen, I was able to get 2 tests in per, so we can get 4 out of this, which is kind of cool.
Nice. Now, is that one have the LED that's always on, and then when you press it, turns off? Okay. Yep. Okay. Nice.
Hopefully you can see that in the stream. Yeah.
Yep, I can see it.
Good. Okay. Switch back over to the other view and see what we got here.
There we go.
VIHF. Make sure I make that distinction.
So, how long would you say it took you to set up everything for?
I mean, it's kind of relative to everything else when you're shooting. If I left this setup out, it would be like a second. But from unboxing everything, it's be a little bit. It's probably like an hour. Hey, Scruffy, how you doing?
Hey, Scruffy.
Good to see you. Tito and Bob sounds like a new band.
Hey, it does. Let's see. The retro light. So the video will be coming out for that. That was actually the one I was supposed to do this week, but ran into a snag. But it should be resolved hopefully pretty soon, and I'll try and get the video out as soon as I can. But really excited for it. It looks really, really cool. And just for folks who don't know, so the retro light is it's kind of a emulation handheld kit that you can, I don't know if you can buy it yet, but it's being made by Stoned Edge, and it looks kind of like a Switch light, which is why it's called the retro light. It's a really cool looking kit, and I was a little upset that I ran into the issue because I really wanted to show everybody it, but Scruffy, did you build one, or are you in the process of building one?
That's interesting. Okay, so check this out. We have the beam of light right up top as this starts to, you know what, let me try to get this even slower so that we could watch this for slow-mo here. Now, this is the opposite of what we've been seeing. The light is, we're waiting for the light to go off to start the reading.
Mm-hmm.
The light goes off as the light first starts drawing, as the beam first starts drawing the frame. So this is kind of interesting. 1, 2. See how that says now 21, 22,
Mm-hmm.
and then 22. That means it
Oh.
stopped.
Okay. Oh wow, that was really fast.
That's really fast, but so this is not an apples to apples comparison because now we're going on start and stop versus exit.
Mm-hmm.
I would be willing to bet that more than one frame is or it takes more than one frame to draw the final. So let's take these tests, but let's take these tests knowing that our results are going to be skewed and see if there's some compensation we could run. And Extrems is a great person to talk. I mean, he's the person who created this, but he's just a wealth of knowledge of this stuff. So between Artemio, Pinot Batch, and Extrems, but let's just do another quick count here. So 1, 2, 21, 3. Yeah, interesting. If we get 3s all across the board, that's probably it. It's probably that we're not doing an apples to apples comparison. But hey, I mean, right off the bat, we're seeing some great results here. So
yeah, wow.
Same thing. Weird. It's just a coincidence. But we got 1, 2, 3. It didn't restart. Sorry. Are we? There we go. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that was
Another solid 3. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry to beat this to death, but the number itself that right now doesn't mean anything. These are baselines. So my apologies. Okay. See the number changing, 16, 17.
There it goes.
Where did that hit? Was that another one right at the top?
I think it was also right at the top. Yeah.
I bet you that's the controller polling. We're definitely going to have to redo this.
Oh. Wait.
No, it starts a little lower that time, but that's
Okay.
still 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4, but that's because it had just started drawing as opposed to when we got it up top. So that makes sense. We add some to this.
So So you think the controller polling is an issue or no?
Not an issue in a bad way. I think that's
Yeah.
just another very cool thing that speeds this up.
Got it.
Here, so this is now at the bottom. So this is going to be kind of interesting to see. So we got 3. Try that again. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, 3.
So another 3. So my guess is that this and the consolizer are the same latency, and the 2-frame difference that we're seeing is the fact that it takes 2 frames to draw the animation of getting to the other screen. And in fact, that would most likely make sense. But what we're really seeing that's important here is more consistent readings as well. So let me do one more test, and let me switch the controller polling and kind of just go from there and see what happens. But I'll admit I am kind of cheating a little bit because I knew how this was going to end because I've tested this before. So, but this is cool. I'm glad I get to do this on stream.
Oh. Should I switch the camera or? Well, I guess.
Yeah, you might as well, so we can kind of show this off. Graphics gear, exactly. If you already have a GameCube, get the Game Boy Player hardware, then don't even bother getting the Game Boy Player software. It's useless. If I could do this quickly, I could try to even load that up just to see.
And aren't they like kind of like expensive or rare or something? Those CDs.
Incredibly expensive.
That's crazy.
So we're gonna leave the polling rate at default. So whatever it was, I'm not setting that. It really is the worst controller I've ever used. Did it not boot into Game Boy mode? In doubt, reboot and reseat. I don't even need that one for this. Oh, why aren't we getting any video output?
Huh, that's weird.
That's the monitor. It's always the monitor. These H-series BVMs are so awesome and so terrible at the same time. I have two, both because I know one of them's going to die at some point, just because that's how these things go, but also because if you ever have a signal that you want to, or you're working on a mod or something, and you want to make sure your monitors, or it's compatible, if it works on this, it'll work on anything.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
Yeah, we're back.
There we go.
So, GBI. GBI HF, video buffering single, format NTSC, 480p 60. Everything else is left alone. So if it doesn't work again, that I could just reboot the monitor again.
So, Bob, do you have a Twitch channel? I do have one, but I never use it, and it's mostly just to watch stuff.
Same. I like Twitch. I have a good time on it, but I never built a following. So it just... No, I hope this doesn't come out sounding douchey, but if I have a live stream where I get to hang out with people, I want to hang out with all my friends, not just the two that happen to catch me on Twitch. So that's really interesting. It just does not like that video mode.
Interesting, huh?
It was already working. Wonder what... See, something always goes wrong in these in these tests. I'm gonna try going through Swiss again just to see.
That is so weird. But you really didn't change the settings too much, though, right?
And it should have been the same settings I used before.
Yeah.
It's just that's how these monitors run.
Oh wow.
Mike, the test software I've been using is the 240p test suite. That's free and open source, and started by Artemio, who still runs the project, but just an awesome human with a great team of people working on it. And this is Swiss and Game Boy interface. All of this stuff is linked on RetroRGB if you'd like, if you're curious about it.
Yeah, I can put a link in the description too, because I'm sure people will be wondering. I'll put a link to that article on RetroRGB.
Yeah, let's try.
Put a note to do that.
If this doesn't work again, we could try it. No. Wait a minute. I must have started the wrong one. This is the one with Zoom. So this is not the right one. Damn. Always something when you do these tests. I did not expect it to be this, though. For anybody who doesn't do these tests for videos, now when people are like, that was a 12-minute video, how the hell did you spend 40 hours on it? Well, count these hours too, because...
Yep.
F, single buffer, NTSC, 480p 60. And if that doesn't work, we could just run the same thing in 240p mode. It's not going to be a difference. Oh, this seems to be... Now this is like a Swiss error or something. Huh. Now it froze. Okay. I'll I'll try it in 480i. Should make no difference in lag. Later, if you found, well, first of all, if you found a paid version of 240p Test Suite, somebody is scamming you, or it's the official people selling the hard copies, not the ROM. That's totally fair. But it is on itch.io, so it is that site where you don't have to pay if you don't want to, but if you want to tip the team, you totally can. Video buffering single, NTSC. Let's just do 480i and just see what the heck happens. No, it froze again.
That is so weird.
There's extremes when we need them. All right, let's just leave this part out for a couple seconds. I mean, the stream was still a success. We confirmed Gamebox's own internal results, which is great. That means, you know, the coolest thing you could do is have two different people approach the same thing two different ways and get the same results. That's science right there. So that's good. And we confirmed. I wouldn't go by the number that we found, but we confirmed that GBI in HF mode is very fast, which I never doubted. And now the only thing we're confirming is if I have my stuff set up correctly. Oh, wait, no. Single buffer. That's weird. So this stopped working for some crazy reason, but still would call this a success because we found all those other things. So
yeah.
And I'll bug Extrems with this tomorrow and ask what he thinks happened. Because usually it's my fault. I'm not going to lie. 99% of the time when this happens, it's my fault. But you all saw live on stream. I did the same thing twice with two different results. So. Does anybody have any questions or anything else before we take off? Oh, this isn't the most exciting live stream, but hopefully it was at least educational to any of my fellow nerds out there.
No, this was extremely, I mean, I enjoyed it, and it's kind of cool to see the whole process through, and it looks pretty, I mean, maybe the setup isn't simple, but once you get it all set up, it looks pretty simple to, you know, get the test results and execute the test, so. Yeah, no, thank you, Bob, for, you know, doing this stream, having me be a part of it, and, but yeah. Cool.
Thank you. Paisley Boxers, what Game Boy mod is the most handsome? It's whichever one Voltar is holding, clearly.
Ah.
Mike, I love that tiny TV. What's the model? You do not want this model, but the one that you want that kind of looks almost exactly like it but performs way better is any 8-inch Sony PVM. You should still be able to get those for $200 or less, probably less in most cases. Really neat. The only ones that do 480p are these D9H BVMs, which are so freaking temperamental, and they sell for like $1,000.
Oh wow!
So if you would really like, one of these, I could try to hook you up with somebody I know that still has them. But I really only recommend these for people who do signal testing like I do, or for people who absolutely need 480p CRTs on the go. So basically, this exact setup in a Smash tournament, except. And I would just say grab yourself a 14-inch VGA CRT monitor for that, but I know a lot of people that travel to these tournaments, so having this thing with a handle on it and everything would actually be worth the money.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, most people can do without 480p, because you could use Swiss, the same software, to force GameCube games to 480i or even 240p in some cases, so the non-HD version of that would totally work fine. Model is the TV in the background on the right. That is a Panasonic Tau. So that's an HD CRT, and it's gonna be months before I'm done. But thanks to Shank, actually, I've been compiling a ton of info. That Shank basically connected the dots for me. After years of testing, he and some of our fellow nerds figured out a lot of the gotchas with those. So if you stumble across an HD CRT, hold on to it, because it might not be the best now, but with a few of the tweaks that we found, at the very least, it'd be amazing for 6th gen and up. PlayStation 2, original Xbox, GameCube, Dreamcast, Wii, any of that stuff and up. Not for retro, but there's ways around that. So we got you covered.
Sweet.
Soon we got you covered. All right, well, I think that's just about everything. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you, Tito. Thanks for making all your freaking awesome videos.
Oh,
Big fan.
course.
So it's really cool to be able to do this with you. And obviously, and
Likewise.
especially, thank you to everybody who sat through this
Yep.
and hung out in the crowd and was a part of this. You all make these so much cooler to do. So thank you very much.
Yep. Definitely. Couldn't have said it better, Bob. So, but yeah, that's all I had. Bob, anything else? Any last nickels for anybody? Or
No,
any?
no.
Okay.
I think that's it. I think
Cool.
I think we're good.
Perfect.
Take care, everybody.
All right, guys. Take it easy.